Hello and welcome to this, our 56th episode covering
56.
the 56th serial of Doctor Who. Welcome to Drunk Doctor Who. You come here often?
As often as I can.
Me too. About once a week, sometimes twice.
Giggity. Alright.
Well, let's introduce ourselves.
Alright. I'm Hatter. This is Holden.
This week,
is Drunk Doctor Who. If you're watching this, you are really, really bored. But
this week,
cool.
This week I am Ryan Reynolds.
You're not Ryan Reynolds.
Shh. That's
alright. What are we drinking?
What
are we drinking?
I'm drinking both Modelo. You're drinking Fireball.
Magma Flame.
What did I? Blasphemy! I said Fireball. I'm sorry.
Magma Flame.
Because
life is too short for bad tasting alcohol. Yes.
Life is too long for good tasting alcohol.
No,
that's
the
why
exact
I'm
opposite.
drinking Bishop Cider Peach Tea, made in the great nation of Texas.
Yay!
The barcode is this Dallas skyline.
There you go.
For best results, pour directly into mouth.
But you put it in the glass with ice.
Right. And then pour it into. It says, pro tip: serve on ice. Splash of bourbon optional. We didn't have any bourbon, but I will be pouring it directly into mouth for best results.
We have rum, we have cinnamon whiskey, we have vodka, no bourbon.
We have the nation of Texas and the nation of Mexico.
It's great to see Texas.
Represent.
Let's go. Alright, drink. All right.
Drink.
Cool. Alright, so we watched this serial. There was 6 episodes.
Be discussing the Mind of Evil.
Yep.
Is it up there? Yeah.
Yep. Today is October 12th of 2020.
Yeah,
2020, 1920, the internet didn't exist.
Bente,
yeah. 6 episodes that aired from January 30th, 1971 to March 6th, 1971. The companions were Joe Grant, the Brigadier Sergeant Benton, and the antagonists were the Master, because he's the new bad guy, the Moriarty to Dr. Sherlock.
The sibling rivalry.
Yeah, well, it's not made canon that they were siblings,
it's
although
canon,
it was about to be made canon.
In my heart,
Delgado died, unfortunately. No, but that'd be really creepy when Missy kisses the Doctor then. Alright.
Well, I haven't seen that yet.
You will not for a long, long time.
There we go.
So, the Master prisoners?
Yeah, and prisoners. The alien species, which we'll refer to as the Keller machine.
It wasn't really an alien species. Well,
that's an argument.
Yeah,
that's an argument I'd like to discuss.
An evil entity that came about because the Master's machinations with human minds, dumping all of human mind stuff, neutrons into a machine.
Machinations or machinations?
Machinations.
See.
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure on that. But all the evil...
Country of origin?
Yeah, all the evil of certain human minds dumped into like a container and eventually became this evil blob that killed people.
We'll get there. No
spoilers. Yeah, we'll get there.
Spoilers.
What do you mean spoilers? This is a bloody review show of an episode from 50 years ago.
Hopefully you're watching along with us, so you've already seen it.
Yeah. And if you haven't already seen it, go see it, but it's like 50 years old.
We'll drunkenly recap it for you.
Thank you, yeah. And this is really a Punch and Judy show, you know that, right?
What is that?
Punch and Judy?
No. Is that like,
Now you're getting the idea of Punch and Judy. Really, you don't know Punch and Judy?
No. Is that like, what was that show that came on after Mork?
Mork from Ork?
Yeah, it was a show like the 2 girls that lived in the apartment.
Laverne and Shirley?
Laverne and Shirley came on after Mork. Is it like that, Punch and Shirley?
No, Punch and Judy were puppets that they used to do in the Middle Ages. And the one would hit the other and
Like from Time Bandits that
Yes,
Napoleon
Time
was
Bandits.
laughing at?
That's Punch and Judy.
Oh, okay.
Oh my gosh. What the hell do they teach you anymore? Don't answer that. It's
I thought I did pretty good.
Well, you do okay. But
Obviously, I wasn't raised in the 1600s.
No, being raised in the 70s or 80s, you should know world history and things. But
Spoiler alert, the 21st century, the only puppets we watch are Dunham.
Dunham? Oh, man.
Jeff Dunham.
Well, him and...
Jalapeno on a stick. Ahmed.
Yeah, I kill you.
I kill you.
No, hopefully more than that.
Those are the only puppets we're watching nowadays.
Oh my gosh. I'm getting old. I mean, seriously. This is what every old person thinks and feels, I'm sure.
1400s old.
Punch and Judy. Alright.
Those on Narbers.
I'm 52. I'm not 252. Although some days I feel
You act like it.
Yeah.
Some days I think you might be the Doctor regenerating.
Oh, if I could regenerate, that'd be great.
You certainly sound like you're speaking from experience.
Yeah, that's true.
You've watched Doctor Who how many times over?
I've seen at least every episode 3 times until the new Doctor. Until Whittaker. I've only seen her stuff once because it's crap. Alright. Okay.
What's
The Mind of Evil.
What's K9 doing over here in the corner?
What are you doing? Where's my DVD?
Oh, it's probably still in the living room.
Oh.
Let me go grab it.
Seriously, Magma Flame guys, I will do a commercial for you. And I won't ask you for any money. I'll just ask you for a case of Magma Flame every month for the rest of my life. That'd be awesome. Okay, there we go. Mind of Evil DVD. You got the DVD out of the DVD player?
Oh, I didn't. I just grabbed the case.
Okay, so the DVD still... okay, well, hold on. I may have put it in there.
What?
Check it. I may have put it in there.
That's a good point. You
Okay,
sure
good. I
did.
put it in there.
You sure did. I was about to go hit eject on an empty DVD player.
Oh my gosh. Okay.
Is that Blu-ray or DVD? That has
DVD.
It's, it will be.
Oh my
Right?
god,
Some
this is
point?
gonna be forever. Okay. So...
you got some catching up to do.
Yeah, Mind of Evil. Alright, so...
It's another antagonist.
What?
The evil of human nature. This big
Killer machine, that's what you put.
Well, that's the alien species that
No, but that's the
feeds on the
human
evil
nature,
of
yeah.
human nature.
Yeah.
Alright,
So the Mind of Evil. So obviously the Doctor, Joe, and the antagonist is the Master, because he's here pretty much all
He's
season.
the mastermind of the
But
everything
seriously,
that's going on.
He's here pretty much all season. This is the Master's big beginning.
But he lived.
He lives, yeah.
We'll get there.
Alright, episode 1.
What?
Okay.
I thought that would stand up straight. Trying to make a scene. Do you ever go to Joe's Crab Shack?
No, I'm definitely allergic to iodine. I do not go to Joe's Crab Shack.
Be gone!
But I'm born and raised in New Orleans. By the way, who dat? The Saints won tonight. Thank you very much for overtime.
Can we talk about that football game? Overtime?
We only saw the last
30
play.
to 27. We won.
We'll take it.
Woo!
Take
This is
it.
a good game.
Please, Lord, let Brees go to the Super Bowl. This is probably his last
Drew Brees.
viable year.
You think so?
He's already missing a step the way Brady did last year. He's
You don't think he's going to be...
He's not as good. He's slower.
Well, Tom Brady's a lot older than Drew Brees is.
1 year.
Really? Only one? I thought...
42 to 41.
Oh, I thought...
Brady was missing
Really?
a step.
Drew Brees is 41?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
Brady was missing a step last year. He should have retired when they won the Super
He
Bowl
looks
2 years
good
ago.
for his age. I thought he was like 31.
Breeze?
I thought he was in his 30s.
I'll take that. But anyway,
He's doing good.
Brady should have retired when they won the Super Bowl 2 years
Sorry.
ago, but he didn't. Breeze, they should have gone to the Super Bowl 2 years ago. instead the stupid ass Los Angeles
They'll
Rams.
Here's what's going to happen, though. They're going to get it this year. They're going to get their...
I pray so.
Next
This is
Super Bowl
literally Bree's last chance. This is it. This is all she wrote. He barely won tonight. They barely have a winning season.
No, I'll say
this is last chance.
You're a glass half full kind of guy.
I'm a glass half full kind of guy.
You're going to get it.
Wait. I've been rooting for the New Orleans Saints my entire stinking life, and I'm 52.
You like my garnish?
Yeah, you're gonna spill that.
Yeah, it's like cast iron. It's a little heavier than
this is cast
the
iron,
average
actually.
Garnish.
Okay.
Is that what it's called? A garnish? The little lemon wedge you put on your little umbrella.
It's called a garnish. Also called "Why the hell are you diluting my drink?" Yeah.
Squeegee. What are you talking about? Some things are just made to put lime in, and by design, it's just a whole lot of fun to have a little umbrella to twirl on you. I'm a fruity drinks kind of guy. Margaritas, tequila, frozen, strawberry sugar and diabetes. That's my kind of night. That's my vodka Sprite. It's a sweet drink. No garnish, but
vodka
sweet.
Cherry sours are good. Literally anything
I don't know how I feel about sours, but anything you put vodka in is just
cool. Alright, can we talk about the cereal?
Yeah, let's do it. Episode 1. Take it away, Hatter.
Alright, episode 1. The Doctor and Joe Grant are going to Steinhoff prison. Stanbolt prison or whatever.
Stanwell prison.
Stanwell,
yeah.
That doesn't sound right, but okay.
That's what I wrote down.
Yeah. So we're 50-50 on one of the
Stanwell prison. So they're pulling up in Bessie. They pull up on this old castle, like, what did he call it? An old fortress.
It is an old castle from the medieval times.
He spots a camera that's recording the entryway. He has a reaction to this camera, which he thinks it's absolutely absurd, which is somewhat comical because back in, 1971, there wasn't, surveillance on every single corner. So he's, poking fun at this camera. He's like, oh, you're on camera, smile.
But they're pulling up to a prison.
I mean, they're pulling up to, well, so obviously there's going to be surveillance at the door. I don't know why he chooses to have so much fun with it. He kind of presents it as like, it's absurd to have a camera at the entrance. Because even though the Doctor is this space future Time Lord being, he's somewhat really old school and archaic in some ways.
Yeah.
He's very old school.
He's old and traditional.
So he's very traditional. So, modern day surveillance and data collection, he's like, oh, it's so absurd, cameras. But, which is funny because, nowadays in 2020, you see it, you walk into Walmart or Target, you're being recorded by just hundreds of cameras on every corner.
The UK's even worse.
Yeah. So,
right. But anyway, so the Doctor and Joe Grant pull up in Bessie to the prison. Mm-hmm. They show their IDs. They get in because they have the appropriate accreditations.
We get to see Pertwee's portrayal of the Doctor be goofy, which is something we don't see very often. Is goofy Pertwee Doctor. He's he's dancing a jig in front of the camera. He's being fun-loving and silly, but
like I was telling you, Pertwee is known for two characters: the Third Doctor and a scarecrow in a children's show, which he did for like 10 years. I don't know the name of it, but he did it, and it was really, really big in the United Kingdom.
That's a really hard transition for actors to make, because as an actor, you portray one role really, really well. you get typecasted, and that's the only role you're ever offered by your agent is the same.
But he was never truly
role.
typecast.
Yeah, but he made that transition from like grumpy, person to really, really fun-loving, goofy kind of person, which is kind of the same transition we get from, what's the name of that guy with the really stark white hair? And I think he's an Airplane in Naked Gun.
It's about Leslie Nielsen.
Leslie Nielsen, hilarious comedy actor. Before that, he was known for action movies,
Drama.
I mean, yeah, So he made that transition. He was kind of typecast from this, serious drama character, and then all of a sudden, he showed up in all these comedies, and he's amazing at it.
Well, because Airplane transitioned him when he was played that same character in Airplane perfectly straight. It was so funny.
It's so funny.
And they put him in like Naked Gun movies and all the other stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's easier to transition from serious drama to comedy rather than the Die Hard transition from, what's his name? Bruce
Willis.
Bruce Willis. He went from a soap opera, heartthrob, kind of goofy, fun-loving romance character to this serious, gritty action hero in Die Hard. So when they announced the casting for Die Hard, which was his action movie, everyone laughed that Bruce Willis was in it. He was like, "Oh, he's that soap opera actor. That he's, he plays that, romanticized, silly, goofy, flirtatious guy. He can't be in an action movie." Revolutionized action movies. He made the harder transition from, silly, goofy to serious, gritty, rather than the serious, gritty to the silly, goofy, which both is hard. It's hard to.
But I mean, Smith. He made the transition. Will Smith went from fresh Prince of Bel-Air to action movies like Independence Day.
Yes.
And Hancock and like a crap ton. Men in Black, a bunch of others.
I feel like Will Smith's character is kind of this baseline that he's really good at this kind of comic relief character. So he does both. He does really well in both, sitcom serials as well as being the comic relief in Independence Day and Men in Black. So he didn't have to really change his character all that much to transition from these
he's not the comic relief so much as...
oh, he's funny though. He's really funny in Men in Black.
There's 10 other people who are more comic relief.
In Independence Day?
Yeah. Okay, you got
Jeff Goldblum. He's like the nerdy, serious, we're all gonna die. He's not really a comic relief.
Slightly. You've got
crop duster.
Crop duster.
The
guy.
president.
The president, more or less.
They're all really
But you've got that weird gay guy who's, I'm gonna call my lawyer.
That ashy voice.
I'm gonna call my lawyer.
How he got?
Screw my lawyer.
I can't remember his name, but you know how he got that like ashy voice? He tore his vocal cords doing like this Broadway show, where his stage director said, "You got to deliver this line, and you gotta project. You gotta yell it as loud as you can." And he did it, and he played this character so hard that it tore his vocal lungs. So from then on out, you see him in Mrs. Doubtfire and Birdcage. You have these Robin Williams movies, and he's known as a guy with just a really ashy voice, kind of sketchy.
All right,
but it's kind of sad.
You got the country singer guy.
It's also inspiring. It didn't stop him. He tore his vocal lungs, and he just kept going as an actor.
You got the country singer guy who dies early on.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, there are several other people who are the comic relief.
Right, I'm not saying he's the main comic relief, but he's this baseline character that transitions really well from both genres. He can kind of... But he doesn't really have to change his acting methods all that much. And people like to discredit the fact that, he went from rapper to Fresh Prince of Bel-Air, and they say, oh, he had no acting experience, and the reason he was able to do that was because he wasn't really acting in those really serious scenes that, he's just drawing from method acting and real life experience.
Well, that's acting.
He didn't have, a good father figure, and that's not true. He's on great terms with his father. They just made that up out of the blue. He's just a genuinely amazing actor who made this transition from rapper to actor that transitions very well from genre to genre. And then you have these other characters that make this really big change from genre to genre kind of actor, where their acting performance varies widely from straight to goofy, and then goofy to straight, like Bruce Willis from soap opera character Goofy, romance to serious grit. Anyway,
we have 6 episodes of incredibly packed episodes.
We got a lot of catching up to do.
Oh my gosh.
First episode. So far, to catch this up to date, we have the Doctor and Joe pulling up to
Snoggrad prison or whatever.
Stanwell prison in Bessie, playing in for the camera, showing ID. They're pulling into the courtyard. Take it from there.
Okay, so they get into prison. And
science presentation.
They get into prison. It's an old fortress, an old castle. And Joe Grant asks the doctor, why do you want to be here? And the doctor's like, scientific curiosity. Because apparently there's this new method of taking prisoners and removing all the evil from them through some sort of synaptic, neuron thing where they remove the negative or evil impulses.
He says he wants to be there for scientific curiosity, but also, not only that, but also the fact that he's a science advisor for UNIT, who is the branch of government that assesses foreign threats and...
Well, that's what allows them to get in.
Yes.
Right.
Which is also easy.
So...
I'll let you take it from me.
Okay. So, okay. You going away?
What's Hyperion?
Is
that like a Wheel in Time kind of fantasy thing?
No, it's a novel I'm reading.
That looks like a Magic the Gathering character.
Yeah, I don't know. That's a novel I'm reading, and I'm like 3-4 chapters into it. So
is it good?
Started. Well,
he looks like the Solemn Simulacrum kind of.
Yeah, Sad Robot. No.
Sad Robot.
That's the Solemn Simulacrum's nickname in Magic.
All right, episode 1. Scientific prison.
Okay, you'll be gone for like 20 minutes. I might get to episode 2.
Okay.
Okay. Oh my gosh. So anyway, the Doctor and Joe Grant go into this prison. They're going to witness this procedure where there's a particular machine, the Keller machine, is placed on a guy's head, and it's supposed to suck all the evil out of that individual. Like everything. It takes the negative or evil impulses from their brain, extracts it, and puts it in the machine. They witness this when they do this on this one guy, Barnum. And afterwards, Barnum reacts physically very negatively. But there may be an over impulse from the machine. There may be the fact that he was kind of extra evil. We don't know. But he was sentenced to have this done. The person running the machine is Dr. Kitterell. And there's also Dr. Summers, who's a medical doctor who's watching over the whole procedure. The doctor... and it does not get along really well with Dr. Kitterell. But the doctor and Joe and several other reporters and people watch this thing. and all the evil goes into this machine, and the patient / prisoner is taken away, and the doctor confronts Killinger. Ooh, I don't remember his name. I'm drunk. Reasonably drunk. Not racist, but reasonably drunk. They confront him. He goes, well, I know this machine. Dr. Keller brought it over and he showed me everything. And this is done a bunch of times in Switzerland. This is the 117th patient it's been done on. So anyway, the doctor's like, the machine is evil. Seriously, the machine is evil. And Keller's not willing to believe that. The governor of the prison's not willing to believe that. Joe Grant's like, you should listen to him. He's a genius. He knows what he's talking about. But they don't believe her. In the meantime, there's a giant worldwide peace conference going on in London. The first ever worldwide peace conference. And a young, attractive female Chinese lady goes to the brigadier because he's the head of unit, and the unit is in charge of the security for all of the people in the peace conference, and says, stuff was stolen from my diplomat's room. Why? What are you going to do about it? He's like, I didn't know this would happen, that this can't happen. She said, it was stolen. He's like, okay, I'll look into it. And then she is later seen burning the papers that she accused somebody of stealing. So it's all a setup. Then the machine focuses its evil outwards because it's grown a mind of its own, and kills one of the prisoners near the machine. He dies, he screams, and it turns out that their local doctor in the prison, Dr. Summers, turns he died of heart attack from fright, but he has a bunch of claw marks on him. Turns out the guy has a great fear of rats, and the claw marks, the nibbles on his face and arms could be true as rats. Dr. Summers is like, that can't be, there's no rats here. But they take him away for the full post-mortem. Oh my gosh, there's so much in these episodes. Okay, so in the black and white, they had to have 40-something episodes a season, so they kind of stretched the episodes out, so there was less going on in them. So when they dropped down from 42 episodes a season to 25 episodes a season, they're trying to do the same number of serials, but with fewer episodes. And there's so much in them, at least in the first few seasons of Pertwee, that they're jam-packed. It's just crazy. Like we talked about the one serial that was 7 episodes, it should have been 10. There's just too much in them. So anyway, pardon me. So anyway, come on.
Cause that's alright. What I missed? Where we at?
I think we're in episode 2. I'm not 100% sure.
Where are we at in the plot? I took notes, so I can probably tell you.
Okay.
The end of episode 1 is the telephone scene when we find out the master is that's the very end, and then it.
Yeah, I haven't mentioned the master.
Okay, we're still in episode 1.
No, well, maybe. I may have moved on to episode 2.
I have a confession to make.
All right.
A little while ago, making myself a drink. You're in the bathroom. I'm waiting around, a little curious. I decide to take a peek at the pantry, and this Cajun here just casually has ultra death sauce with like a skull hanging off of it, hot sauce just hanging out in his pantry. Yeah. This is why I can't ever eat anything you make. It's just, you're like, oh, it's just a little spicy. There's death in it. And you're like this witch over this bubbling cauldron.
Warlock, I would be a warlock.
Warlock. Making this death potion. You're like, oh, no, it's fine. Just friggin', Louisiana, this is a little spicy. Got some, ghost peppers hanging out. Ultra death sauce skulls hanging out in his pantry. I'm like, close that pantry. Regret looking at that.
Okay.
Can't eat anything.
I disagree, but okay.
It's so spicy. I'm so white. I can't handle any spices. Any banana peppers.
Banana peppers? They're like as mild as bananas.
Yeah. That's why I can eat them. I can't handle spices. I don't even like pepper, man. I can't. People put pepper on eggs. I'm like, you ruined it.
Welcome to our new 3-hour episode of Drunk Doctor Who.
We got a lot of catching up to do, man. We got a action-packed 6-episode serial.
True. I was telling you about that.
We have just a pent-up previous week of ranting that I was able. All right.
Previous week of ranting.
Because we missed a week, so I just have all this pent-up.
Was that last week or the week before?
Last week we missed. Yeah. This is.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So the week before last was the last podcast. We missed a week, and we have this week. Yeah. So what happens is we have a lot of just chit chat to catch up on when we're on podcast. A lot of this and that. So we get really sidetracked talking about Drunk Doctor.
You get really sidetracked talking about Doctor.
You're over here getting involved in like British Parliament politics and stuff. So I've come up with a solution. All right, and you're hearing it here first. What if
both of you?
Here's my all two of us and you watching.
So we get like 2 views anymore, and it's you and I probably.
Here's my pitch. All right, we're gonna make a subsidiary general topic podcast. We're gonna call it "Hold On to Your Hats" or something. Holden and Hatter. Mm-hmm. Hold on to your hats or something. You get it?
I get it.
It's a play on our names for the title. Hold on to your hat. Hatter. Holden.
I get it.
Hold on to your hat. Just a subsidiary podcast where we just get to be off topic. We just get to rant. We get to talk about current day events. Are you
eating peanuts?
Sunflowers. Our audio podcast listeners are hearing conversation just.
Wait.
So that way we get all of that out of our system. We don't even have to set the camera. Maybe it's just like an audio only thing we throw out, and we get that all out of our system. And then we sit down for Drunk Doctor Who. We just get to talk about Doctor Who. Because
I don't ever believe that's going to happen.
We just get all the other off-topic stuff out of our system.
You're going to go off-topic even if we do 18 other podcasts.
No, it's just because I... Okay. So we're still on episode 1 here. Probably about an hour.
No, 1 to 2. Oh, gosh. Okay.
So where are we at in the plot?
There's a lot of stuff happening, okay?
A few things. What happened, Sam?
I'm trying to remember where I was before you interrupted.
So I stormed back in, ranting about your spicy cabinet.
Yeah. Okay, so...
It's true.
How many drinks
Ultra death sauce. I have my water for rehydration. I just needed my Bishop cider, and then you decided to open this for me preemptively.
Yeah.
So now I have my backup. I got my drink, my backup, and my hydration. So water, drink, backup drink.
Okay, drink.
You're drinking straight spirit, so you know you need a little less. You should probably have a water too, though. So let's.
Nah, I'm good.
So you gotta hydrate. For every 1 ounce of liquor you drink, you should probably probably hydrate 2 ounces.
I'm good. Okay.
That way the hangover doesn't just hit you like a wrecking ball the next day, where you're like, my urine is like toothpaste. I have no water left.
I'm Cajun. I'm good. Right.
Well, okay, you might be. I need my water. That's why I have 3 coasters.
So, Drigo. Alright. Oh my god. Why do you expect me to remember the whole plot? Okay.
I took notes. I not only wrote down questions, I also took plot notes. So, excuse me. Sorry.
Okay. So, the weird brain in a jar, evil Keller machine thing.
Oh, we're not there yet. We don't know. It's just a clear crystal vial. It's been used 113 times. It's been used 112 times.
I mentioned that.
The 113th time is on Mr. Barnum here.
Yeah.
He gets all the evil sucked out of his brain. The machine malfunctions because later you figure out it's hungry for evil. So it not only takes out the evil intentions of his brain, but it overfeeds in his mind and it takes out every evil impulse, which just leaves Barnum as just this childlike, innocent,
Nephilim.
He's just this gentle giant of a creature, but he's incapacitated. As this machine is just sort of throwing fits. Did you talk about the deaths yet? We had Professor Kettering. We have 2 deaths. All right.
No, I'm getting there.
In the first episode, so, and I have some questions about him, so I'm glad we're talking about him. The first death, everyone, the machine kind of malfunctions. It overfeeds on Barnum's brain. They take him to the hospital. You talk about this is all taking place in the prison.
Yep.
Because they're, you have these death row criminals that they're, instead of death row, they're getting all the evil sucked out of their mind.
Right.
You have, so you have everyone leave the room. The scientific exposition is over. You talked about the doctor criticizing Professor Kettering and his mad delves into the evil nature of humans and messing with the human psyche. They all leave the room. A professor walks back in. And
a student.
A student walks back in the room. The machine switches on by itself, and this person is found dead in the room. And his shirt's torn, and he has scratches on his face, much like the scratchings of a rodent.
Rats, yeah.
Yeah, and he died of a heart failure, of fear, a heart attack. He's going ham on those peanuts.
Well. You're covering what I covered, so I'm good.
I'm sorry, you forgot where you were, so I was trying to catch this. Do you remember?
I didn't forget where I was.
What?
You keep going.
You didn't? I was just trying to sum up where were you at?
Somewhere around there.
Okay, so we find the student dead on the floor. They take him to the, post-mortem synopsis. They find out, died of a heart attack. They try to pass it off as, who knows what happens, and the doctor's like, I'm not buying it. This guy has his shirt's torn open, he has scratches on his face. They look into his file, his record, they're like, he has this deathly fear of rats, and he looks like he got attacked by rodents. I think there's something suspicious about this machine. They're off discussing this in the medical ward of the prison. Meanwhile, Kettering goes back in to the room, and he's messing with his, what do they call it, the Keller machine?
Yeah.
Because it malfunctioned a little bit earlier, so he's messing around with the circuitry. Again, it switches on by itself. All of a sudden, Kettering is facing his worst fears. These images of an ocean are conjured forward.
Drowning.
He's drowning within his own mind. They resolve what happened in the medical bay. The doctor and Josephine and the governor walk into the room where the Keller machine is. They find Professor Kettering dead on the floor. They're like, what on earth happened? There's 2 deaths in the same room. What's going on? So they take him to the med ward. They do the postmortem synopsis. They say he
drowned.
He drowned. His skin, his skin texture, the paleness, his lungs were literally filled with water. He drowned to death in a perfectly dry room. They're like, what on earth is going on? This brings us to my first question. All right? Mm-hmm. So we have this machine which is designed seemingly to draw out the evil impulses of the human nature and store it in the storage capacity. After 113 12 uses, it's like 65% full.
Right.
It starts to malfunction. They don't really want to accept that right away. They just say, a glitch in the system, it's overcompensating. But we, as the viewers, behind the scene, we get to see what's happening when no one else is in the room. We see Professor Kettering, drown. And before that, we saw the student, face his fears. He died of a heart attack of fear because he thought he was getting mauled by rats.
Right.
And throughout the serial, they pass that off as, kind of Matrix-esque of your mind thinks it and it becomes reality to you.
Right.
It's a hallucination.
It's real because your mind believes
It's real because your mind believes it's real. It becomes a hallucination. It becomes, this projection in your mind. I don't really subscribe to that because when we look at the evidence, it looks like literal conjuration of your worst nightmares. Because Professor Kettering, when his worst fear was brought forward of him drowning, when they take him into the med bay and they do the post-mortem, they find his lungs literally filled with water, They have actual water. And the guy who was afraid of rats not only died of a heart attack because the image of rats was conjured mauling him, his shirt was literally torn open and his face had scratches on it. So that's, it's one thing to attribute that to the power of mind causing physical ailments like a heart attack, but it's another thing where we dive into the literal conjuration of water in his lungs and the scratches on his shirts. So I don't think it's just to do with what's happening in their minds, but maybe this machine is not manifesting, but literally conjuring creatures. It's like what do you call it from Harry Potter?
Oh, the scary ghosty things.
It's not only mental and it reads your mind and draws off your evil impulses and your worst fears, but it's also physical. It's kind of metaphysical.
Right, what are they called?
Apparition. Oh, in Harry Potter? Yeah, I forget what those things are called. It's this creature in Harry Potter that reads your mind and displays itself as your worst fear as a defense mechanism, when really it's harmless, and there's this really simple spell where you turn this, your worst fear into, you force it into something silly or funny. But it's not only, the power of your mind and your fear, it's also physical, much like in this episode where his lungs was physically filled with water. And this guy was physically mauled by rats with the scratches. Would you agree with that? It's not... They pass it off as just being in your mind, but it's not. It's like physical. It's real. His mind...
It's real because your mind makes it real. Matrix stuff. Anyway. Okay. You need to drink more.
Okay.
You're staying here tonight, so that's fine. Alright. He's not driving. We have a guest room.
You feeling okay?
I'm feeling really drunk. Alright. Not like stupid wasted, but I'm planning on getting there, actually.
Alright. Are you going to make it through the podcast?
Probably.
We're on episode 1.
Because you won't let us move to episode 2.
Alright, move on.
Alright. Oh my gosh. Okay, so there's like I said, there's a crap ton going on. Should have been 8 episodes, but it's 6 because we went to the condensed 25 episode season in the color. era in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
So the guy dies to the stupid, evil, brain of evil, mind of evil.
The Keller machine.
Right.
Or there's the machine and then the storage device, and the device is storing the manifestation of evil nature, which later we find out physically manifests itself into a
hideous
creature.
blob.
We'll talk about that. Yeah.
Kind of looks like a doll.
So we have not only the Keller machine, we have this alien creature inside the Keller machine.
Well, that's the evil.
And so on.
Yeah. Okay, so guy number 1 dies. He was like a medical student. The doctor tries to convince Kettering.
Professor
The machine's evil. It's evil. Don't trust it. He dies. And the doctor goes to confront the machine to turn it off. The machine tries to take care of the doctor and destroy the doctor. The doctor manages to survive, but just only because Joe Grant disobeys his orders and comes in.
Joe Grant, Mav, actually saved the doctor's life, or at least
Correct.
saved him a regeneration. I made a misnomer. I thought the Master was at the end of episode 1. The Master is at the end of episode 2. The end of episode 1 is the Doctor being attacked by the Keller machine, and his worst fear, or one of his worst fears, of
fire because of the inferno.
Inferno, the world.
Was that really episode 1?
That's the end of episode 1. Is the Doctor being burned alive inside of his mind. And then at the beginning of episode 2, Joe Grant walks in and she's like,
She saved him, yeah.
It distracts the Keller machine, it switches off. You kind of, in the first couple episodes, you get this impression that the Keller machine is trying to stay covert. It's like not wanting to expose itself as a smart, intelligent being. What do you call it? When
cognizant?
When a computer becomes cognizant.
Self-aware?
Self-aware, yeah. So it's kind of trying to be subtle, and it'll kill people. It'll turn itself on and kill people, but it's trying to stay covert, and it'll turn itself off when someone else walks in the room.
Yeah. So how many deaths do we have so far?
2.
Literally. What's the total death count for these 6 episodes?
Oh, alright, so episode 1 we had 2 deaths. At the end of episode 6, we ended up with 22 on-screen, and then implied off-screen deaths, we have another 12 or so. So
34 deaths. Children's show!
It becomes really muddled because there are scenes where a convoy's attacked and there are explosions, and it becomes real confusing on who's dead and who's not dead, and then who died on screen and who died off screen. And I always like to throw in this argument of, there should be a difference between, the violence of someone dying on screen and then someone, being dead off screen and being an implied death. Yeah. So there's a little bit of a different violence, but total deaths during the serial is like around 35. About a third of those people died off screen. Is not as violent, but 2/3 of those people died gruesomely, just having their. And these are very gruesome deaths. Maybe not physically gruesome, but
we don't generally see blood. It's just
people being shot. A lot of people getting shot in like close range, close quarters combat, just being shot.
Oh. And then mind control.
And then people literally having their worst fears manifested and drowning and burning alive and being mauled by rats in their mind.
Being hit by like dragons.
It's a horribly violent serial for a children's show.
There you go.
There's so many deaths. And I keep commenting on how every week we're surpassing a previous record of death counts. And we've done it again. We have 6 episodes. We have 22 on screen, a third of that off screen. Like 34 total deaths in 6 episodes.
What's 6 deaths per episode?
Yeah, it's not only breaking a new record in total deaths, it's also breaking a record in per episode deaths of... It's crazy. It's just Doctor Who is progressively becoming more violent until the point where eventually it goes from a children's show to a family show. Which still seems...
And I will tell you exactly the episode where that happens.
Yeah, and it begs you have to look at the rating system and how people in 1960s, 1970s were a whole lot more grounded and gritty when it comes with violence, and children were exposed to more violence at an early age. Nowadays, and it started in the mid 90s, early 90s, but certainly by now in the 2000s, 2010s, 2020s, something that's rated R nowadays was rated G back in the 70s.
G or PG, yeah.
Yeah, it's like Poltergeist was a PG. Parental guidance, they're saying, oh yeah, if you're a child, as long as your parents with you, you can watch The Poltergeist. Where nowadays, G and PG is going to be something with slight cartoon violence. It goes from G to PG where there's any sort of slight action cartoon.
To be fair, Poltergeist was appealed at the MPAA from R to PG, but yeah, it ended up being PG.
Yeah. Yes. So there's kind of this, people refer to it as a generational wussification.
I can go with that. Yeah.
They call it the participation trophies.
Oh, God.
They're wanting children to be less exposed to violence. They're wanting kids to be less competitive, and it's even affecting laws and legislators to where back in the day, you and I were able to just, at a very young age, walk to school and just be on ourselves, and we're taught to, if a stranger talks to you, you be respectful. A random stranger could walk up to your parents and be like, your child did something wrong, and then they would take that random stranger's word for it over their child's, to where there's this total flip to where if you as a child walk to school by yourself at a young age, a police officer is literally going to charge your parents for child endangerment. And the world hasn't become more violent. There hasn't been more kidnappings or more, child abductions. It's just that people are more sensitive to it.
No. When I was a kid, strangers could go ahead and what's the term? They could put your child in line. What's the term?
Yeah, discipline.
Strangers could discipline your child.
Yeah, it's like the rack your knuckles with the ruler kind of teacher thing.
Right.
Now it's like it takes a village to raise a child.
Correct.
Nowadays it's don't touch my child.
Right. No, when I was some 15 years ago. Okay, there was a kid in my shop and he kept cursing. He was 16. He got to the point where I'm old enough to curse.
Yeah.
I'm like,
I have learned the F word.
Yes. I'm like, you're not an adult. You don't curse. So every time I told him, you keep cursing, I'm going to hit you upside the head with a fly swatter. And he kept doing it.
You didn't think
and
I
hit him upside the head with a fly swatter. And he did it about 4 or 5 times. I kept hitting him upside the head with a fly swatter. Finally, he stopped. When his mother showed up to pick him up that day, I told her, this is what he did. This is what I did. This is how it went down. And she thanked me for it. But that is the exception.
That is not the norm.
That's not the norm anymore. Yeah. Don't touch my child. Especially
how dare you?
He needs a safe space and all other crap,
Just parents not parenting their children.
Right. But corporal punishment is necessary for some people.
By
It's
the
all
rod.
they understand.
That's how you learn. There's not people say people who are disciplined with violence are raised to be violent.
No.
No, they're raised to be respectful. Is
Right, but kids, especially young kids, need corporal discipline or they will never learn.
complacent parents raise monsters of children. Just
That's the millennials, pretty much, yeah.
I'd say that's some millennials.
Most of them, yeah.
I'm in that weird transitional phase where I'm not necessarily.
You're not quite a millennial.
I'm a millennial.
Hmm.
I'm on the tail end of millennialism. Millennials are like 30 years old. People don't think of that. They've coined this term millennials, and the older generation will use the term millennial to refer to a younger person. But nowadays, in 2020, most millennials are in their 30s. I'm 25. I was born in 1995, which is on the very tail end of the millennial generation. It depends on which website you look at. So I'm like half, 2/3 of the websites, I am a millennial. A third of them say I'm not a millennial. Some draw the line at 1994, some draw the line at 1996. So I consider myself a millennial. But it's kind of the generation of the millennial has kind of turned into this catch-all phrase of the younger, disrespectful, unappreciative generation. It's kind of more of a term than a name for a generation. And I'm at this weird transitional phrase where I had older parents. I'm 25. My dad is 75, 74. So I was raised with older parents. But at the same time, they did discipline me. I learned respect. But at the same time, they were very loving and very caring. Probably, arguably too much so, mothering to the point where I'm probably not nearly as disciplined as people who are older than me. So I'm at this point where I know how to respect my elders, but at the same time I'm not necessarily disciplined. I struggle with laziness and motivation. Some of those were a transitional phase. I'm a millennial. I do struggle with some things, but other things I am old school and traditional and respectful. So I'm kind of in between this generational transition. But yeah, it's a weird thing to think that people complain about millennials being this younger, unrespectful generation. Well, nowadays, those people are like 30 years old, and then it's Gen Z, and then Generation X.
No, I'm Generation X.
Oh. Boomers are 50s, Gen X, Millennial, Gen Z. I don't know what comes after Gen Z. I'm in between Millennial and Generation Z, I think. Gen Z are like current day college students, like 18. And then grade schoolers are the generation after Z.
I think you're off on a bit of that.
Probably. I'm just speaking from...
I think you're off on a bit of that.
But everyone is off when it comes to generations because there's no standardization. It varies a lot. There's not a number of years that separate generations. I really wish it was. I wish it was like, within generational...
20 years. Boom, boom.
Yeah, like 20-year periods, generational. It's not, though. It varies widely. And like I said, it depends on which website you look at. Like, some draw the line at this point, some draw the line at that point. So, I'm right in between where these people cut up the line. So, So
you can go either way.
Yeah, I identify. I feel like I relate to millennials, but I'm right at the tail end. And like I said, millennials is a phrase that, kind of like a catch-all phrase that people refer to as a younger generation. But in reality, the millennial generation was, They're 30 years old now. They're in the 90s to the the millennial generation, 90s to 2000s.
Okay. Episode 2.
Episode 2. Joe walks in on the doctor burning lead.
No. Wait, was that the end of episode 1? That was really the end of episode 1.
Yeah, the doctor messing with the machine turning off. The doctor thinks he's burning alive. Joe walks in.
I thought that was the end of episode 2.
The end of episode 2 is the master messing with the phone line.
So much going on. Okay.
I'll let you do.
You let me do. Where are you going?
I'm gonna go look at your spicy pantry again. I'm gonna go to the bathroom. I'll stop talking about generations and expositioning. I'll let you.
Because it's the only way we can advance.
That's the only way we can advance the podcast is me leaving. I get so sidetracked. Take it away ahead. Episode 2.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So the machine. Okay, so much going on. So the machine, which has already killed 2 people, the killer machine, goes after the doctor at the end of episode 1, apparently. That was episode 2. The machine exudes evil. All the prisoners in the prison pick up on it, like they did the previous times. The doctors are coming to it, and imagine fire all around him. Like we have the rats for the one guy, the water for the one guy. Now it's fire because he was recently in the Inferno, that serial. Anyway, so Joe Grant runs in and breaks up, yay Joe Grant. She breaks up the hold the machine has on the doctor. So when she does that, he comes to and he's like, well, why didn't you bring this report that you brought to me to the governor of the prison? She says, well, I wanted to come to you because I thought it was important. And oddly enough, the doctor's pretty gruff this whole serial to everybody, like everybody, unlike him. And he's like, well, you should have done that, you should have disobeyed my orders, even though she saved him. So he's like, oh, okay. So the doctor realizes the machine is evil. She already came to that conclusion previously. Then he gets called away through Corporal Yates to go help the Brigadier on another case because the Chinese diplomat to the World Peace Conference has been assassinated. And the only witness is that young female, Chinese female. So the doctor is like, I don't want to go. Finally, Corporal Yates goes, where are you going to go? And the doctor says, okay, if I must, I must. And because he finds it interesting that there was a young female at that post at the conference. So he goes out the Brigadier. The Brigadier sent Sergeant Benton. Yay, Benton. We have drinking game to take a drink whenever Benton shows up on screen. That's been a little disastrous, but fun. Anyway, so Benton follows her. She's absent with her mind powers, which are apparently siphoned through the master from his mind powers and through a little technological thing behind their ear, but originally emanating from the mind of evil. The jar thing back at the prison, and she manages to make him faint, possibly pass out, and she gets away and then Benton can't find her. To which, unfortunately, the Brigadier is very cross. It's like you couldn't find her. A Chinese woman in London, which I think it was particularly rare in the 70s, although the British owned Hong Kong, So you think there would have been more of them back then? Because Hong Kong was, well, ostensibly Chinese, but controlled by the British back then. The British gave it back to China in 97. Anyway, so this captain of the Chinese consulate, Chinese party to this World Peace Conference, she gets away. Benton goes back to the brigadier. The brigadier says, I need the doctor because the Chinese ambassador has been killed. Chinese delegate. The doctor shows up, examines the Chinese delegate, says, well, it was killed. Looks into it, and he's trying to discover how or why. So he's left the prison, he's gone over there. And eventually, the young Chinese lady, captain, meets up with the master, who comes back with the cereal. The master linked into telephone lines heading from unit outwards, and he's tapped in their telephone lines. He's listening to them talking in a really, really nice vehicle manned by a chauffeur. It's really posh. She's listening to that, and the Chinese young lady, she shows up. And he's like, you must kill the American ambassador. And she's like, don't make me. And he grabs her, looks into her eyes, and hypnotizes her into killing the American ambassador. So she goes back into the hotel, into the suites with all the stuff. She calls the American ambassador, Senator Alcoff. She says, come into the Chinese suites, we want to talk to you privately, there's lots of secrets. So he goes to the Chinese suites, and then she turns on him and becomes some sort of ancient Chinese nightmare dragon, and he falls over from shock, but she doesn't quite kill him when the doctor and the brigadiers show up. So we're at the end of episode 3, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
You're talking about Senator Alcott.
Yeah.
And you talked about how the doctor was talking to Commodore Fu Ping, and he spoke Haitian?
Hawken. No, I didn't mention that part.
Oh, what?
Okay. So in episode 3, like I said, these episodes are jam-packed. So in episode 3, the recent Chinese consulate or Chinese delegate who is killed ostensibly by the young Chinese lady.
General... what was his name? Cheng Tek.
General Cheng Chek. He was killed by the young Chinese captain.
It seems so obvious when like white people are writing Chinese names. Wu Ping.
To be fair, I used to live in China.
Jing Chong.
I used to live in China, so I've got a bit of the dialect.
Are these, do you think these names are very accurate, or do the names just sound like white British people writing down what they think a Chinese name would be?
No, they're fairly Chinese names.
Because when I think of Chinese names, I'm thinking of like Hong Liang, Hiri.
Well,
when white people are writing Chinese names, they're like Jing Chong, Jing Jing, Ping Po.
Gosh.
Wait, on the reverse of that, in Japan, when they're making Nintendo games, there's this one gaming company that made a Nintendo game that took place in America, and there's just a list of credits where they're trying to come up with American sounding names, and it's hilarious.
You sound like Rosie O'Donnell, though.
Do I? Why? Should I be offended?
Maybe. She did a segment a long time ago about Chinese people, and she turned up her eyes and went, ching ching chong chong ching chong, and
that's offensive.
Yes, but you somewhat sound like her with what you're saying.
Well, I'm making fun of how white people do that when they're writing in what they think a Chinese name would be.
These names are actually accurate. They're okay. I used to live in China. I'm not Chinese born. I'm not a Chinese, but I used to live in China for 5 months back in 1999, and these are reasonably Chinese names.
Reasonably. I have a Chinese brother-in-law, so I'm allowed to make racial comments.
Like anyone's watching this. Like anyone cares. I mean, but
we're gonna get in trouble on YouTube.
To what end? I mean, if we got in trouble on YouTube, we double our viewership of
that'd be cool.
2.
0 times 2 is 0.
The only people watching is probably us. Yeah.
Did we talk about who we're sponsored by this week?
We're not sponsored by anybody.
Magma Flame. And
I would love to be sponsored by
Milton Berle's Joke File.
Oh, God.
$5.99 on Amazon. Go pick it up.
The book in my bathroom.
Collection of best gags, jokes, and anecdotes.
What was it? What do you call the product of a prostitute?
Brothel sprouts.
Brothel sprouts.
This isn't the first time I mentioned Holden Berle's Joke File on the podcast.
I love Uncle Milty. Uncle Milty.
Mostly I'm critical of it because it's like generational humor that I don't understand. So I'll read most things.
It's
and I'm
2
like,
generations.
I'm like, I don't get it. He's talking about,
brothels.
He's talking about pop humor and stuff. So I made this resolution. Every time I open the book, I'm going to keep reading it until I find a joke that I understand. And most of the time, I'll give up before I find one that I get. But I just recently found my most favorite one, and I get it. It's the brothel sprouts joke. And that's hilarious. So it's hit or miss because I don't get half of them. Very sophisticated. Couple generations removed. I don't get a lot of the pop culture references.
2 generations from you, and I'm 1 generation from you. So
we're the same generation.
No, we're not. You're in your 20s. I'm in my 50s.
We're the same age.
No, we're not. I'm a generation ahead of you.
To me.
Huh?
Yeah. Our parents were the same age.
Okay, only because you were adopted at a very late age for your
I wasn't adopted.
How old your father?
74.
Mine is 79. How old's your mother?
64.
Mine is 75.
Well, your parents are close to the same age. My mom's 10 years younger than my dad, which makes sense.
Okay, but our parents are reasonably close. But you and I are a generation apart. Because I'm 52 and you're 25.
Here's the thing. Time progresses linearly. 1 year at a time. But that gap between our age closes in concept because you go from being 50 times my age to 25 times my age to 20 times my age to twice my age to
right, but the rule of
closer together.
The rule of dating still applies. Your age divided by 2, rounded up, plus 7.
Hold on.
That's the.
What if it's an odd number?
No, that's.
How do you divide an odd? Okay.
What's your age?
25 divided by 2 is
12 and a half.
12 and a half.
12 and a half. Round up to 13.
Round up. Plus 7 is 20.
20. That's the
5 years.
That's the youngest person you can date without it being creepy.
That's fair. I don't even know if I want to. Well, first of all, you don't want to date under 21 because they can't have alcohol. And what's the fun of taking a 20-year-old to a bar? so off the bat, I don't think I'm dating anyone under 21.
Right,
also,
but there's the creepy factor.
Also, yikes, girls that are like 18, 19, 20, very immature. It's hard to relate to them on an intellectual level when they're, those really young college age girls. They're just, I don't want to be offensive, but, immature younger people just seem so brain dead. It's hard to have a conversation.
My wife's like, you're going to leave me for somebody who's younger. I'm like, no. I don't want to have to explain to somebody who Ronald Reagan was. I mean, literally. I mean, she and I share the same history. She's only a year younger than I.
It's still weird to me that
11 days, but
that an actor became president.
Yeah, it's happening.
There's something wrong with our political system that it's like a popularity contest where I like Ronald Reagan. He was pretty cool. He made a lot of big mistakes. Kind of like an actor isn't qualified to be president. We have Arnold Schwarzenegger. Again, I love Arnold Schwarzenegger. Great person. Great actor. Best governor California has ever had.
No.
Ever will.
No. California had Ronald Reagan as governor.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yes, in the 70s.
Second best governor California will ever have. My generation. Arnold Schwarzenegger is great. Again, seems kind of weird that he was elected governor of California just because of his name recognition. And then again, Trump. Let's not get into politics. But analytically, if you look at his political career, really started off just on his brand recognition.
Yeah.
And it took off.
We're not going to take this so political.
We're not going to get political,
but
I'm just saying there's this
Trump
weird...
was only minimally an actor. He was in Home Alone 2.
The Apprentice.
Well,
he had a TV show. I'm not talking
he was
about...
in Home Alone 2. He was in some really weird, bad movie.
I'm not talking about just acting. I'm talking about like brand recognition. Like he has the Trump Tower. He had The Apprentice. He owns companies. He endorsed steaks.
Well, yeah.
He did commercials. He's a well-known... He's not the richest person in America, but he's influential.
The richest person to hold executive office. That would probably be Rockefeller.
But he's well-known, and he's influential, and he's a character, like an American, very recognizable. And there's this... All I'm saying, I'm not getting political or taking... All I'm saying is there's this weird correlation with elected public officials and their brand recognition, and how a lot of times people will get elected to office just how recognizable they are and how popular they are with the media. People go to vote and they're like, I recognize that name. That's the freaking Terminator. I'm voting for the Terminator. Yeah. They're like, I'm voting for Trump. I'm voting for Ronald Reagan. I saw him in a movie.
Oh, right.
All of a sudden, that person's president. That person's governor.
Let me explain to you about Governor Hogan.
Hulk Hogan?
Yes.
Was Hulk Hogan really a governor?
Governor of Minnesota.
I didn't know that.
Yes. Yes. Let me explain to you how that happened.
Is Hulk Hogan
exactly
qualified to be governor of Minnesota? I'm not going to say, but I am going to say he was only elected because, not because of his political stand, but because of his name recognition. You're like right in, you're like, I know who that is. That'd be hilarious if I voted for him. Oh,
was it a Reform Party? I don't remember if he was a Reform Party, Republican, or whatever. Yeah, Hulk Hogan was governor of
WWE party, brother.
Governor of bloody Minnesota, Wisconsin.
That's hilarious. I had no idea. We have towns.
Why do you not know this? How do you not know this?
Is that common knowledge that Hulk Hogan was the governor of Minnesota?
I would think so. Apparently not.
Can we talk about how popularity polls had... gosh, what was it?
Okay. You finish your drink. Get into this drink. And we can continue the bloody cereal.
It was a dick joke.
Dick joke.
Yeah, there's a joke candidate, which was some dick joke. And he was polling like top of the polls. It wasn't even a real person. There's a write-in ballot, and they're like, who do you think's going to win this election?
All right, bottoms up.
Bottoms up. All right. Off-topic tangent. Let's talk about... Where are we on? Episode 3? We're halfway through.
No, possibly 4. Oh my god.
This is another 3-hour...
If you're surviving this with us, I'm sorry. I hope you're drinking too.
You should get an achievement for making it through this podcast. 7-day survival. We'll, at some point, we'll have a website, like a web domain you can go to, and we'll host our videos there.
We've got...
And I want to make, like a profile system to where you can earn achievements. Making it through the longest podcast.
Seriously, we're on YouTube. I think we're on BitChute. And maybe soon we'll be on
maybe Spotify.
Spotify.
Coming to a Spotify.
Well, no, I've got to take the video and rip out just the audio.
There's some.
When I rip out the audio, I put it on Spotify.
That's why we should just have a separate audio track anyway, and then we can do a USB Blue Yeti mic.
No, I just take the video, the audio, and rip it out. Okay,
but if we already have the audio in one track and the video, we can sync, and then we can just take
you rip it out. Okay,
audio.
Okay, I am 1 episode away from finishing everything we've done.
Really, you caught up?
Which is the.
I was trying to catch up too, but I didn't do as good a job as you.
No, for watching it, I'm like 3 episodes away, but for.
Look at that head. That's a thick head.
No, for the I'm talking about the conversion, right?
Jiggle.
I'm talking about the rendering.
Oh, okay. For BitChute?
No, the rendering for everything. Okay.
What about it?
The rendering from the full video style to the augmented video style, which saves a lot of video space. The only series I've got 1 episode left, which is which is the History of the Companions Part 2. Once I render that,
are we talking about BitChute?
No, hold on. Okay.
Oh, you're talking about adding on the intro for the hosting the videos later.
And rendering the video
compression
shrinks it by like 50%.
I'm up to date now.
I have 1 video left, which is History of the Companions Part 2.
That's awesome.
Once I do that, and
that's
tonight's video...
That's like 2 hours, 45 minutes.
No, the Part 1's 2 hours and 40 minutes. Part 2's a lot shorter.
Okay.
But once I do tonight's video, and that, I'm caught up.
Nice.
Once I'm done with that, I can start stripping out audio.
Spotify.
For Spotify.
Yeah, we'll work on
that. And I can upload the Spotify stuff.
I'm sure they're fascinated about
fascinated about us talking about our crap.
Welcome to the behind the scenes of the podcast, where we talk about the making of.
The making of whatever. Okay, them being fascinated about us talking about crap off air where they can't see us drinking about whatever, but that's fine. I don't care. Remember,
who wouldn't want to know the behind the scenes?
Who's this for?
Benton.
No,
you and me.
This is for us
and Benton.
And if you watch, if you listen, if you subscribe, great. If you don't, We don't care. We're
Screw
doing this
you.
for us.
Just kidding. It's just for it's an excuse for us to get drunk.
We're doing
Obviously.
Sergeant Benton.
That's our new drinking game.
Sergeant Benton.
We used to salute every time Sergeant Benton came on screen, and it's like, why are we drinking every time?
Now we drink Sergeant Benton. Love you, Sergeant Benton. If you're still alive, and I kind of doubt it,
We kind of saw the first
we love you.
bit of Mike Yates becoming a bit of a hanyat, where he's trying to manhandle the doctor, but then he gets his shit shoved in when the doctor Venusian karates. That's later. Let's talk about the end of episode 3, possibly 4.
Oh my gosh, sounds good. Okay.
So
This is going to be for friggin' ever.
Yeah, another 3-hour podcast. So the end of episode 3 was we found out that the master was really presenting himself as Emil Keller, who made the machine, and he shows up at the prison. So did you talk about the attempted prison break where that one person smuggled the gun under
No, I've not gotten it.
Mailer's pillow? Okay. So
No.
let's
there's
dive
so
into
much
episode
friggin'
3.
crap shit going on.
What?
Our ego.
Okay.
Oh my god.
Where did you leave off?
I don't. Okay.
So there's two kind of plots going on at the same time. There's the and they kind of intermingle. It's weird. There's not only
Intertwined.
intermingling, intertwined. So we have the Keller machine and the evil nature of people, and that's taking place at the Stanwell prison. And then you also have this military base with the brigadier and the peace conference that's going on, and they have this nuclear missile called this Thunderbolt, which is this gas
The Brigade's headquarters is a revamp of.
I have that written down.
Of the
War Games.
chateau from the War Games.
Yeah, so they're reusing sets. They repainted it because it's in color. They wouldn't have had to repaint it if it was black and white.
Well, they probably would have still.
But it's in color now, so they had to repaint it. And we see the Brigadier reusing his set as his office. The Brigadier has so many offices. He just kind of shows up and he's like, "This is my office now."
Well, he's got the mobile HQ, and he's got this HQ.
It's his unit headquarters, and he's kind of like this on-site advisor to wherever he goes. He's like, "This is my office," which is something is, I try to be meek and humble, but at the same time, you kind of have this admiration of power to where you're like, that's a pretty cool goal in life, to just show up somewhere and be like, this is my room. This is my room. I have my desk. I have my phones. Get out. This is where I live
guys.
now.
I rule.
Screw you guys. This is my office. You just kind of show up from place to place. You're like, I'm taking over this room. This is where I stay.
Exactly.
And that's the Brigadier. He's in charge. I like the Brigadier. You know who doesn't like the Brigadier? The doctor, Pertwee. Pertwee's doctor doesn't like the Brigadier.
Nobody likes the Brigadier.
He's so nasty towards him. He's always
antagonistic. He hates
always
the military
antagonizing.
mind. He hates the military mind.
He's so mean.
But he loves the Brigadier.
Yeah.
He does.
Troughton loved the Brigadier. Pertwee.
No, you'll see. The doctor loves the Brigadier.
The doctor.
All incarnations.
Overall. So we have these two plots going on. We have the Stanwell prison with the Keller machine and the prisoners. And as the Keller machine's messing with everyone's psyche, it's drawing out everyone's evil nature, especially with these really corrupt, morally degraded characters in prison. Is causing these riots to break out. Meanwhile, we have the peace conference going on at the unit place. The unit shows up to this peace conference We also have Chinese delegations. We have American delegations. They're all gathered together to sign peace treaties.
You get the gun under the guy's pillow.
Yeah, we're about to get to that. Yeah, and meanwhile, at these peace treaties, they resolve that chemical warfare is against the Geneva Conventions.
Mm-hmm.
So Britain had this nuclear rocket that had a gas warhead, and they called it the Thunderbolt. So they're like, this is a war crime now, so you have to get rid of it. So they're making plans to drown that rocket at the bottom of the ocean, dump it off. And they're crossing a few complications. We have Captain, what was her name? Chin Lee. She causing some problems. She's accusing people of stealing documents, and she's burning the documents. That's happening over here. Back at Stanwell Prison, we had... Now, who was it that smuggled the gun under the pillow?
The janitor.
The janitor, who later we find out was mind controlled. But the janitor smuggles a gun under a prisoner's pillow. That prisoner's Mailer. He's a big character. Mailer whips the gun out. He takes the officer. A prison guard is a hostage, and then the prisoners break out as the riots are going on. Anyway, there's this big revolt. So they have the prisoners with the hostages. The governor shows up with other unit and other police officers. This standoff. Bless you.
Thank you.
There's a standoff between the prisoners. God bless you. The brigadier shows up. And then we have this suspicious telephone character who's working on telephone lines. God bless you. God bless you.
Maybe.
That's the thing. If you bless a sneeze preemptively, before you sneeze, it totally kills the sneeze. And I get really frustrated because... Alright, it didn't work.
Alright.
I get frustrated because I was about to sneeze, which is really sudden and it's surprising. So I just try to warn people before I sneeze. I'm like, oh, I'm going to sneeze. I had this one friend who would be like, God bless you, before I sneeze. I'm like, well, now it's gone. I'm not going to sneeze now because you preemptively blessed my sneeze before it came out. You got to do it post-sneeze. Otherwise, you do it pre-sneeze. Totally cuts off the sneeze for me. I don't end up sneezing. They get up all in my head. So anyway, we have this prison breakout, rioting, hostages, standstill.
Is this the first one or the second one?
The first one, with the gun. I know, right? So we have this suspicious character tapping the telephone poles. At the very end of episode 3, we discover this telephone worker. He walks into his tent. He pulls off a mask. Surprise, surprise.
Episode 2.
It's the Master. Oh, you're right. That is the episode 2. How does episode 3 end? Good Lord, I don't know where. Oh Lord. Anyway, that happened. Gosh. So, Jo is involved. She was visiting the prison because she took a liking to Burnham, who's this childlike, gentle giant who had all the evil intentions sucked out of his brain. She visited him in his recovery. She's in the prison. She's hanging out with Dr. Summers, who's kind of like this, the med guy for the prisoners. They're hanging out during this whole prison riot. So Jo is one of the hostages that's taken by the prisoners. Jo does this awesome thing where, there's been some criticism of Josephine, what's her last name? Grant. Josephine Grant. To where she's kind of like this, really young, ingenuistic, hot-headed person who makes a lot of mistakes. But at the same time, she's kind of like this really cool character who's this jack of all trades, and she really shines at moments. So she has you know, it's kind of, she has her moments. It's this back and forth of, oh, you're really frustrating. I can't believe you did that, Joe, to these other scenes where, oh, that was totally awesome. You totally rocked that, Joe. That's one of the former moments where Joe is a captive in this prisoner riot, and she ends up, you know, totally, you know, wrestling the gun from this guy, and she karate chops him, and she ends up shooting another prisoner. It's this really cool action scene. You're like, I did not see that coming from you, Joe. That's awesome. But anyway, as she's causing that distraction, because, you know, this prison riot broke out and we have all these hostages kind of on the crux of the fact that, you know, there's just this one gun, this one prisoner with the one gun, and this one prisoner is holding Josephine, and she grabs the gun and she shoots the other prisoner, and she pulls and she karate chops this one prisoner, and you're like, that was awesome. And during that distraction, the governor and the rest of the police officers and the unit soldiers rush in, and they dispel the riot, and they come in and they restore peace, and yada yada yada, and everything's back to normal. Then you flash back to the you know, the peace conference, and you come to find out that the master showed up at the end of episode 2. Well, he has been mind controlling Chen-Li, Captain Chen-Li of the Chinese delegation, and that's why she's been doing all this sort of subtle evil behind the scenes, taking evidence, burning it, and blaming, you know, other people, causing conflict because the master's been mind controlling her. So the master shows up and he's like, Chen-Li, you're going to kill the American ambassador. And she's like, no, and she fights against it, and he grabs her face and he looks her in the eyes and he hypnotizes her, and she's like, you will do what I say. And she goes, okay, I'll kill the ambassador. And we notice this weird chip behind her ear, and you're like, what is that? Anyway, she calls the American ambassador. She's like, hey, come over, the general wants to talk to you. Or the general's dead. Commodore, kind of like the vice president of the Chinese delegation, Fu Ping, is like the acting in charge. Anyway, she calls him and she's like, hey, come over. Did you ever talk about how the American ambassador died?
Vaguely.
Okay, so that's the end of episode 3. We're on episode 4 now.
Oh my god. Really?
We find out, so the master shows up at the prison. We find out that the master, who's going under the false identity of Emil Keller, is the guy who made the Keller machine. And really, it's not acting out, it's acting by design as corrupting people. It's not a glitch. It was never really designed to take out the evil desires. It was designed to be, you know, what you looking at? Does it show how long the...
Trying to see how much time is left.
Does it say?
No, but there's a decent amount of battery left, so you're good.
Okay,
this is like for bloody ever, you know?
I know. Where'd you go? You left me.
Oh, I'm getting more drink.
Oh, you know I
get
ramble.
more ice to the drink.
You know I ramble. I can't.
Yeah, you.
I can't do the plot summary.
I'll be back.
I'll be back. He's not the Puma, the governor of California. Arnold Schwarzenegger, if you're watching, and I know you are, I love you. I'm a big fan. So, we have episode 4. The master shows up. He's like, I'm Emil Keller. They're like, where have you been? There's, you know, the machine's been acting up. He's like, oh, there's some glitches going on. Yeah, no problem. Anyway, he's like, I'll take care of it, because they think the master is really this good person who made the machine that's supposed to cure these prisoners on death row of their evil intentions, when really he's there to do the opposite, just throw a big old wrench in the plan. He shows up in Meller's confining cell. He's like, I am Dr. Emil Keller. I'm here to talk to the prisoner. You know, give me some time alone. So the 2 guards, Johnson and Samuels, they exit the prison. It's just the master and Mailer. And he's like, we should probably have Mailer as the antagonist. He's a pretty big character in this. He sort of represents the prisoners. He's the head of the prisoners And the antagonist.
That's true.
Anyway, so the master shows up and he's like, all right, you smuggled a gun in. The plot was doomed to fail. I'm here to really help you break out of prison. He opens his briefcase of all these gas bombs and gas masks. He's like, I offer you resources. I have a plan. We're going to get out of here.
Episode 5, right?
Episode 4.
No. Oh my gosh.
So then...
This should not take 2 hours.
Alright, real quick. There's a second prison riot. Mailer and the master put on gas masks. They're throwing pellet bombs, gas. There's a big shootout. Lots of people may or may not have died.
Children's show.
The Keller machine's acting up again.
It's teleporting now.
It's teleporting now. The master takes the doctor, now that he's caught prisoner in the second riot. He's like, you're gonna be my test subject. You're gonna have to operate this Keller machine while I'm gone to destroy humanity. I'm gonna see how well you can hold out.
No, control the Keller machine.
Yeah, I'm gonna see how long you can resist its nightmarish conjurations. So the doctor is deeply damaged by being handcuffed to this chair, being fed these horrible nightmares of the inferno, the end of the world on the opposite timeline, the Daleks, the Cybermen, the ant people.
Right.
His worst nightmares are made manifest, and so much so that he suffers a heart attack, and one of his hearts stops. One is barely beating. The master comes back in. He takes his pulse. Venusian Kung Fu's his second heart into beating again. Slaps him up, wakes him up. He's like, all right, so we've done some preliminary tests. You found out how long you can last against the machine. Take him back to the cell. Mailer takes the doctor back to the cell with Joe. He's recovering. Joe begs the prisoners who have taken over the prison for some medicine. He's like, he's hurting, he's dying, he's no good to you dead. So they're like, okay, yeah. They bring Dr. Summers over. He prescribes some medicine. Right. Joe tries to make the doctor take the medicine to make him feel better. The doctor gives us this strange line of, he refuses to take the medicine. He says,
wrong metabolism.
I have a wrong metabolism. It'll probably kill me. I'm a Time Lord, which is weird. Which
is probably true, though.
Well,
I mean, seriously.
So that's a question I've written down. Let's talk about that. It's not the first time the Doctor's metabolism has come up, because in terms of the TARDIS and its defense mechanisms, there's what he called the metabolism detector, and the key didn't work for someone else who took the key and tried to open the TARDIS because of the metabolism detector. Now, so let's think about what a metabolism is. The metabolism is a person's process of taking substance and converting that into energy, your daily caloric intake.
It's the rate at which you convert
your substances into energy.
Right. Fat, protein, whatever.
So that's pretty important to humans, even more so for Time Lords, because Time Lords have this whole regeneration sort of system, and we kind of get the sense that their metabolism is very important, and maybe it's tied into their regeneration.
With 2 hearts, 2 circulatory systems.
2 hearts, 2
their metabolism works much faster.
It works much faster, which means they have a higher rate of recovery. They have
a higher rate of thought processes.
Higher rate of thought processes because more oxygen being circulated to the brain. They think much faster reaction time probably. They have a unique metabolism, so they have built-in metabolism detectors to where their key only works for them on the TARDIS. Mm-hmm. And just recently we have this discovery of the Doctor's metabolism is so different from humans that if he took this medicine meant for humans,
it might kill him.
It might have killed him because his metabolism's so different. Which I don't know if he's just being grumpy and he was just making up an excuse because
he was already injured. So we gotta take his word on it,
Yeah, we'll take his word for it.
Are we on episode 5?
Yes.
Yay!
It's just
Keep
upon
going.
episode 5. So episode 4 ends with the realization of the killer machine is able to teleport.
And then kill people, because it's
And then
been
kill
killing
people.
How many
Meanwhile-
deaths are we up to?
A lot. I don't know.
No.
I don't know per episode, but overall
What's your...
is about 34. And 1/3 of that was off screen, 2/3 of that is
So,
on screen.
34 deaths total.
Like 6
Per episode is about 6 deaths.
That's a lot.
Per episode. Children's show. The show's maturing.
It just keeps getting worse and worse.
Well, the
More and
show's
more violent.
maturing, but the
Faster than the audience is maturing.
true, because like with Harry Potter, they mature over the course of the books. you
Yes,
know?
that's an example that I was gonna bring up. My brother was a big fan of Harry Potter. He started off reading the Harry Potter books very young. He's a fast reader. He outpaced the books to where he's still really young, and he was reading through the book series, and it got more mature, and it really turned him off. He's like, oh, it got weird. It got too, adult for me. It's, kind of, it got graphic and like sexual content and stuff. Yeah, Levi. He's like, man, it just got too mature for me. I don't know how I feel about Harry Potter anymore. He used to be a big fan of Harry Potter. He started reading the books, and then he
He's
kind
older than you, right?
yeah, he's my older brother. But he started reading the Harry Potter books young, and he
You
read
reading the
through them
books?
so fast that the books matured faster than he did, to where he's like, he was younger. He's reading the newest book that came out, and he's like, oh, it's too much, man. It got kind of adult. It got kind of it's sexual. It's graphic. I don't know how I feel about this anymore. But we have that same problem with Doctor Who, where it just seems to keep maturing much faster than the audience is maturing, to where eventually they turn it from a children's show to a family show. On the other side of that,
And I'll tell you exactly when that happens.
Yes. In my generation, I grew up watching Nickelodeon, Disney Channel, Cartoon Network. Specifically Cartoon Network, there's a show called Samurai Jack, which was an amazing animated television show. It was a children's show. I watched that growing up. It got canceled. 10 years later, they came out with a single season of Samurai Jack to wrap up the storyline. It was much more mature, because everyone that watched Samurai Jack growing up was 10 years older. So it wasn't a children's show anymore. There was blood, there was death. It wrapped up the season.
Good.
The show grew up with the audience. It was amazing. The best thing they could have possibly done. Huge fan. Yeah, it was the best way to tie up that loose end of my childhood, was this old TV show. And it comes back 10 years later. It matured with me. It tied up, the whole storyline. It was an amazing experience. And Harry Potter did that same thing.
And Doctor Who matures in the same way.
Way faster. It's getting really violent.
What, like 35 deaths, right?
But at the same time, there's kind of these, we talked about before, how there are these social norms of things were a lot more violent back then. Parents were a lot more comfortable with their children experiencing violence back then, because there's this sort of stealing your nerves and becoming mature, and it's like
right until about the mid 80s.
Yeah, there's this one movie. I can't remember what it was, what the movie was, what the name of it was. It's like an older movie, kind of around the Gone with the Wind era, almost black and white. I think it might have been black and white. It's an older movie. There's this dad who's very sick. He needed a surgery. His family was in the room. His children was in the room. They're like, okay, we're about to perform the surgery on your father. We need the children to leave the room. And then dad was like, no, keep the children. It'll help them mature. They need to see this. And it's just it's this very older take on a father parenting his children and helping them mature by saying, you need to be exposed to this kind of stuff. You need to mature. You need to be exposed to this so you can be desensitized to this kind of, you know, inner workings of the human and sort of blood, and that way you can become more comfortable, because later on in life you're going to be exposed to this stuff whether you want to or not, and you're going to need to be able to handle that. Yeah, which is not, it's not at all, I can't remember what the movie's called, but it's something that we don't do anymore. It's like, I need to protect you, you're going to be a child the entire time you're in my household until you're 18, and then all of a sudden
you're going to leave, and
all of a sudden
child
reality is going to hit,
crap. Yeah.
And you're going to be exposed to stuff whether you want to be or not, and you might not be able to handle it. Alright, so what happens at episode 5, Hatter?
Yeah, I don't bloody know. You got the notes. What are you talking about?
So we have the second prison riot. The Doctor and Joe are in prison. The Doctor recovers fast because of his metabolism from his exposure to the killer machine.
Correct.
We have the Joe who beat the Doctor at chess. Can we talk about that?
No, checkers.
Checkers. I'm sorry, checkers.
No,
not chess.
There's that scene where Joe beats down the bad guys to retrieve the gun.
I talked about that. That was the first. That was
awesome.
Single-handedly brought the first prison riot to an end.
Yeah,
I talked about how that was
great.
One of the, you know, those
love Joe.
Great scenes of Joe. She has these ups and downs. She has these points where you're annoyed at Joe. You're like, I can't believe you did that. That was silly. And then she has these highs where you're like, that was awesome, Joe. I can't believe you did that. She's like, she's young and she's headstrong and she charges in. She makes mistakes. And, she makes mistakes, and you're like, you should have done that. But she's also, you know, very proficient at some things, and she's a jack of all trades. So she also has these shining moments of, oh, that was awesome. You totally rocked that. And that was one of the scenes where she ends that first prison riot by, she grabs the gun, she shoots the other prisoner, she does a karate chop. It was awesome. But that was the first prison riot.
That was great.
The second prison riot is, in effect, we had Joe beat the Doctor at checkers. Can we talk about that?
Checkers, or droughts. That's what the British call them, droughts.
That's like the difference between pool and billiards.
Well, yeah, or
as in
soccer and football. Yeah.
That phrase means I don't know the difference between soccer and football and pool and billiards.
Okay. But yeah, she beats him at checkers. So what?
So what? We have the Doctor, who's this intellectual Time Lord space being, who has this higher metabolism, so he can have a higher thought process and faster reaction time.
Right.
And he loses to Joe, this 25-year-old at checkers.
Hey,
he's not good at video games. However, we're presented with this understanding that the Doctor's this highly intellectual being, to where he's able to outsmart the what was his name? The Game Master during the that's his name, the Game Master, the guy who may or may not be a Time Lord. And these games and all these intellectual things and chess and this intellectual puzzle, he outsmarts that guy because he's so smart, yet he loses Joe at checkers. What's up with that?
Okay.
What's up with that?
Remember, it's a bit of a ruse to enable him to escape. They do that and they try to escape. Right?
They're being they're being intentionally frustrating.
Right.
Mailer and another prisoner walk in, and they're trying to talk to him, and they're pretending to be very focused on this game.
Right.
And they're trying to talk to the Doctor, and the Doctor goes, shh. and then he takes his move, and then they try talking again, and Joe goes, shh. And she takes her move. So it may or may not have been scripted. Maybe it was scripted and the Doctor could have destroyed Joe at checkers because he's this intellectual being. Maybe it was genuine and the Doctor just sucks at checkers.
Either way, don't care, but it worked, you know?
It worked. It caused a distraction as they were frustrated. They made this coup, they overpowered them, and they made their escape. Meanwhile, the Master is like, never mind about them, we'll form a search party, but really what we gotta do is destroy humanity and capture the Thunderbolt, which is that missile we talked about, the gas, the chemical warfare warhead that we mentioned earlier. Can we once again talk about the motivations of the Master? Why does he want to cause war and peace on Earth? And
because he wants to destroy the Earth.
Yes, why?
And rule over the remains.
He wants to rule over the remains.
It's easier to rule over 2 million people than it is 7 billion people. So if most of humanity dies, he can rule over the remainder.
Okay. It's a way better answer than I was. I thought I'd have an argument, but that's good. That's a good answer. That makes sense. It makes sense. I was so ready to criticize his motives, but yeah. All right, that makes a lot of sense. He wants to destroy humanity so it's easier to rule over the remains. Yeah. All right, cool.
What else was there?
Episode 6. What happens in episode 6, Heather?
What are you talking about? What happens in episode 6?
So, what happens in episode 5?
No, 6. So
episode 6, we see the Keller machine as it's feeding on more and more negative energy. The storage container.
The prisoners.
Yeah, and everyone really. It attacks the Doctor and Joe and the Master and everyone who's near it. And this vial that contains all the negative energies becomes. It used to be this translucent white sort of opaque jar, and it becomes progressively more and more smoky and clouded. And then the big reveal is that they take off the top, and the Doctor this whole time has been saying there's this alien creature, there's this alien being. You don't know the consequences of your actions, the Master. And sure enough, they take off the top, and there's this grotesque swamp thing with an eye. It's this weird alien being, which I wrote down a question here. It begs the question: is this really an alien being that kind of showed up because it's attracted to this negative energy that it was feeding off of, and the Keller machine acted as a sort of a feeding tube that attracted this alien creature? Or does the Doctor just refer to it as an alien creature, but really it's a thing that was born of the negative energy, and it's a product of the Keller machine, and it was kind of constructed here on Earth because of the negative energy of Earth? What do you think? Is it an alien, or was it just made here? You're feeling pretty good, aren't you?
I am blitzed.
You're blitzed, alright. You got that foggy look. Your eyelids have like this, blitzed. 70% closed.
Yep, I'm blitzed. I am done. I am averse, knockless, whatever.
Good deal. So we have UNIT. They thwart the prisoners in taking over the warhead, even though the prisoners hijacked the caravan. They had the warhead. The Doctor made his escape. They sort of wrestle and tussle. Apparently Burnham, it acts as this sort of shield, this intermediary shield between the negative energies that the Keller machine feeds off of, because Burnham has been sucked dry of all of his negative energies, so he kind of just switches off the machine whenever he's in a close proximity, because he's this being who's, simple or a saint. He's just gentle giant who just has no negative impulses anymore. So every time he comes near the Keller machine sort of, it disrupts it, and it's like, oh, Burnham, no negative energy, I'm switching off. And so they figure out that whenever Burnham's near, the machine doesn't function. It doesn't attack people. So they're like, okay, you're able to transport this thing. So he picks it up and he takes it to the site to where the master and the prisoners and units are. And so Joe and the doctor and Burnham show up with the killer machine. They're like, we need to bring this to an end. We have this plot to destroy the master. The doctor propositions the master. He's like, I have your dematerialization circuit. If you ever want to get off this planet, let's meet up. Let's make a deal. That way you can leave us alone. You can, go off to some other world, take over that world. Just leave us alone. The master's like, okay, yeah, sounds fair. Units killed all the prisoners. You've taken back the warhead. This is my last ditch effort. So they meet up, and really it was a coup by the doctor, who had not the purest of intentions to follow through with this deal, where, he's like, we can't let the master run loose in all space and time and wreak havoc on other worlds and planets and civilizations. We're going to use the killer machine to try to destroy the master. And there's this big kerfuffle, and the master is he's all his negative energy is being drawn towards the killer machine, and the prisoners make their last riot, and they have unit, and there's shootouts, and unfortunately what ends up happening is there's this brawl. The doctor and Joe retreat as the killer machines turn on, but Burnham ends up getting too close to the killer machine and swaps off again, because he's this weird negative conduit for the killer machine, which allows the master to get away. And then that's basically the end of episode 6, is that the conflict's been resolved. They secured the warhead. The master went missing again. They assumed he was dead because there's lots of explosions. The warehouse ended up blowing up. So you have the Brigadier and the Doctor and Joe back at the base, and they're like, all right, the master's probably dead. He's like, yeah, there's no way he could have gotten away because, oh no, the dematerialization circuit is gone. He must have gotten away. Uh-oh, the master's still out there. And that's the end of episode 6.
Yay!
Yay! Anything you'd like to add, Hatter?
Yeah, I'm really drunk.
You are really drunk.
I'm really drunk.
So it's a good thing we made it through the plot, and I kind of sprinkled my questions in.
Okay, what are your questions? Any other questions?
I kind of sprinkled along during the recap, but one question I have is, Burnham, how does his interaction with the killer machine make any sense? To where we have Burnham, he had all his negative energy sucked out, so every time he's near the killer machine senses that he has no negative energy, so it just kind of shuts off. Yeah. Rather than what it has always done, draw the negative energy of other people in the room. To where, it attacks the doctor, it attacks Joe, it attacks the master.
Yeah, but when he's closest, it homes on him.
It homes in on him. So we kind of get the impression that it's this proximity thing. Mm-hmm. That would make sense if not for the fact that we also know that the killer machine learned how to teleport, and when it senses that there's no negative energy to feed off of, it teleports somewhere else nearby to where there is.
Okay, but apparently it's only children enough to go after the closest feeding source. But if that feeding source is nothing,
the closest negative feeding source. So you think you'd at least transport to the next room or teleport to the other side of the room. I don't know how I feel about it. It seems weird.
The closest source was just borderline. Yeah. I mean, he had nothing, so it didn't feed off anything.
It's kind of like it's both an intelligent being, but it's still confined to these mechanical limitations. So you kind of you think about electricity and how it travels, and how you have some things that are really conductive, like water, and then you have these anti-conductors. They're like insulated, like, you know, rubber shoes or rubber gloves that don't conduct. So the Keller machine and this alien entity that feeds off of negative energy is kind of like electricity, and it arcs to the nearest conductor. But Burnham kind of acts as this negative free energy who's like this insulated rubber glove, and it arcs to him, but it doesn't go anywhere because he's not conductive, I guess would be the best explanation for that. I don't know. It seems strange to me. I'm not convinced. I guess it makes sense if you have to make it make sense, which I guess you got into in the older stuff. But I think there's a black hole there somewhere.
What's a black hole?
How the Keller machine works with it being, you know, just switching off whenever it's near Burnham, rather than just teleporting to the next negative energy source.
Yeah. Whoa. I'm so drunk.
You sure are, man.
I am, but I live here. I'm not going anywhere. You are not going anywhere.
No, I'm pretty drunk too.
You're staying here in the guest room.
Hang on.
You will.
Alright. So that's about it. We covered the serial. All 6 episodes. I think we got all the questions.
You sure? Okay, we're gonna go over the old stuff at some point. Not on camera. We'll do that off camera.
I really gotta go to the bathroom.
You go to the bathroom.
I have the smallest bladder.
No, you don't. You go to the bathroom.
Okay. Are you able to end the podcast by yourself?
Yes, I will.
All right. So I'll leave you with one last. I'll leave you with one last question.
What's the last question?
We have the doctor,
and
he ends up speaking to Commodore Fupang in his minority dialect of China, which is
Hokkaido.
Yeah, he speaks fluent Hokkaido, and he also speaks Mandarin, and it kind of begs the question Cantonese. Oh, I'm sorry, not Mandarin, Cantonese. So the doctor is just going from person to person speaking different languages, and I asked the question, how many languages does the doctor know? And is that to do with the TARDIS? Is the TARDIS translating for him? Or, you know, how does he know so many languages? I'll leave you to that question, and then I'm about to pee my pants. How does the doctor speak so many languages? Does that have to do with the TARDIS? Go.
Okay, in the old series, 20th century series, the seasons, the doctor can speak or understand any language. Get the TARDIS translator for him. But in these specific serials, the doctor is presented with language he does not know or maybe understand. The TARDIS is not translating. Why is it not? We can only speculate that the TARDIS is still broken because the third Doctor doesn't have full access to his TARDIS thanks to the Time Lord's intervening. But he does know a good bit of Harkonnen and a good bit of Cantonese, you know, Ni Hao Ma, Mawahu, things like that. So he's okay in Cantonese. Much better Harkonnen. Thanks to his experience. He doesn't need the TARDIS to translate. So anyway, that is all of it. That's everything.
How are we doing, Heather?
We're done.
We're done? Is the podcast still going? We're still recording.
The camera's recording, but yeah, we are done.
We're all finished. Did you answer the question?
Turn it off, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Any last thoughts? Anything you'd like to add before we...
Any question that you have?
Let's see. I think we covered just about everything. We talked about Goofy Bert. We lungs full of water, concentration, Brigadier's office being reused. Did we talk about the color quality? How the color quality kind of fades in and out because of the restoration that happened?
Well, yeah, it looks like this is one of the serials. There was only returned on film. Like they shot the film of the original and the film is what existed. So they returned it, the film is what they had. So there were problems with the color tone channel.
So there's this one really sweet moment in episode 5 where you have both the Master and the Doctor dealing with the color machine, and the Master finally realizes that the killer machine is as much a threat to him as anyone else, and it doesn't follow his commands. So they're trying to deal with the killer machine and the fact that it's all of a sudden began to teleport and it's become self-aware and cognizant. And you have this kind of sweet moment to where even though you have the Master and the Doctor, who are these brutal rivals, they're kind of working together for a minute. And the Master is actually complimenting the Doctor on his resolution to capture the killer machine by surrounding it in an electromagnetic field to where it can't teleport. And I get this feeling that maybe under different circumstances, because the Master and the Doctor are intellectual equals, maybe in a different reality they could have been really good friends. And you brought up the point that at some point it was a subplot that was planned for them to maybe be brothers or siblings.
They were gonna be brothers, yeah.
Yeah, which you get this sense of sibling rivalry, yet camaraderie.
Sure, but then Delgado died.
And then the actor that played the Master died, and then that plot got abandoned.
That plot point was discarded.
Yeah.
I really wish it would happen. I wanted them to be brothers.
Yeah, maybe it'll still happen at some point. Probably not, because they made out. Kind of like Luke and Leia, and their siblings. Before you knew they were supposed to be siblings. Before George Lucas knew that.
Because Missy, who's the Master, much later on makes out with the Doctor. Briefly, yeah. It's kind of disturbing.
Can we talk about how the Time Lords are not great mechanics? They're kind of turned inept at repairing TARDISes, and they can't manufacture parts to make it function. Like, the Doctor had his dematerialization circuits ID code changed, this like numeric process, and the code scrambled to where he couldn't use his TARDIS anymore. So all this time, months and months he spent on Earth is just him trying to make a new dematerialization circuit. He just fails again and again. So he tries stealing the Master's dematerialization circuit and putting it in his TARDIS, and that doesn't work. But it's okay because, him stealing the circuit means the Master's also stuck on Earth. And then the Master spends a few months on Earth because he's not able to get his TARDIS to work without his Mark II dematerialization circuit. And you kind of get the impression that, these guys are Time Lords and they use TARDISes to travel in time and space dimensions, but they're not really good mechanics on their vehicles because they can't make them work when something goes wrong. Do you have any insight on that? Why is that? Why can't they manufacture their own parts or kind of jerry-rig it to work?
No.
No, they can't.
Short
and sweet.
Drunk.
You are drunk.
I'm drunk. How are you?
I'm good. I'm pretty good and drunk. We're
Good. Yes, you drink that. Yes, that's magnified. You drink
that's
it.
yours. This is mine.
No, it's good. It's all good.
Alright, that's about it. Had anything you'd like to add before we wrap up?
Questions you have?
What? Next time we have the warp space. Wait, no. What's next? What's our next serial? 4 episodes next time. Thank you so much for joining us. This the 56th episode of our podcast for the 56th serial of Drunk Doctor Who. Please join us next week, next Tuesday.
Next time is Claws of Axios.
On the 20th?
What?
The 20th for the 57th episode of the Drunk Doctor Who podcast where we discuss the 57th
episode.
serial.
Claws of Axios.
Where we watch Claws of Axios.
4 episodes.
4 episodes. Claws of Axios. I'm fascinated. I can't wait. Thanks again. We'll see you next time. Sing our outro theme. Go with the theme song, Heather. Beatbox.
Outro theme? Really? We do?
Beatbox.
What the hell are you talking about?